I don't see Amarendra, Prabhu. Oh, there you are.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Accept my humble obeisances. Glory to Shri.
Dandavat Pranam. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh no, we are just. It's just, you know, you like when you play a game, you have to let the guy who owns the ball play too, even if it's terrible at it, because he owns the ball. So we are terrible people. We just own the ball.
That's not true.
Okay, you can. There's already 46 people, so you can start whenever you like, Prabhu.
Sure, Prabhuji. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Utapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saha Gana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Saha Gana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Prasharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Now, before you start, just let me. I don't know if there is anybody anywhere that doesn't know you, but to all the devotees, we are honored to have Sriman Amarendra Das talking to us. He's whether it is by merit, by design, by mercy, whatever way you achieve this extraordinary skill to bring Leela to our dull, materialistic lives. You deserve all the credit. So we're going to hear today Rama Leela, and I don't know what else to say, Prabhu. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarvatma Prabhu. To all the devotees on the call, it's certainly my honor and privilege because His Grace Sarvatma Prabhu is one of the many devotees I really appreciate and admire in my heart for his very, very beautiful, heart-melting, soul-stirring kirtans. In fact, I remember when I had the good opportunity and fortune of seeing Sarvatma Prabhu, I was kind of super excited, and he was almost like a fan meeting the celebrity. And I wanted a picture with him, and I still remember, I don't know if Sarvatma Prabhu remembers, but I asked him if I could have some of his harmonium melodies, and he was, very, very kind to me. He was recording on he was playing on the harmonium, and I, with my phone, I was kind of recording the videos of Sarvatma Prabhu playing those melodies. So it's certainly my honor and privilege. Thank you. Thank you for this kind invitation. Thank you for having me here at Gita Nagari, the historic place of Srila Prabhupada, Radha Damodar, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and so many wonderful Vaishnavas. So thank you. Before we begin, Sarvatma Prabhu, if it's okay, Aghari Krishna Prabhu is the host. So my request would be if Aghari Krishna...
I am the host right now, so just tell me what to do.
Okay.
I'll make him the host.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you. Just making some changes. Okay. All right. So, to all the wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis on the call, I offer my obeisances. Special gratitude to Sarvatma Prabhu, Bhubrit Prabhu, and so many senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis on the call. Thank you. Thank you for kindly having me. So today we will try to listen and discuss something very important. Last time I remember we had a discussion on Krishna Leela, and today we will try to discuss something on Ram Leela, the pastimes of Sri Ram. Somebody may think or even ponder upon why are we going this route? Like, what's the inspiration? What I feel happy and inspired about this route is we celebrated the appearance of Sri Ram recently as Ram Navami, and also astrologically there was the appearance of Hanuman after that. And very soon in the Vaishnav calendar, we see the appearance of Mother Sita. So we are in the astrological interjection of three wonderful tithis: the appearance of Sri Ram, the appearance of Hanuman, and the appearance of Mother Sita. So although today is the appearance of Gadadhar Pandit in the Gaudiya Vaishnav line, I will offer my obeisances to Gadadhar Pandit and seek for his blessings so that my words can go on the route of Valmiki Muni's Ramayana in glorifying Sri Ramachandra today. So much can be described and said about Sri Ram. Srila Shukadev Goswami, in the 9th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, he spends only 2 chapters for Sri Ram. Certainly astonishing, right? Shukadev Goswami gives 18,000 verses for all incarnations put together. 18,000 verses in Srimad Bhagavatam for all incarnations put together. And Valmiki Muni, the great author and composer of the original Ramayana, the Valmiki Ramayana, he writes 24,000 verses. That's 6,000 more verses than the whole Srimad Bhagavatam put together, and all of them just dedicated in the glorification of Sri Ramachandra. Shukadev Goswami, when he speaks about Sri Ram, he tells Maharaj Parikshit, Tasyanu Charitam Rajan Rishibihi Tattva-darshibihi, that, O king, I will keep the description of Sri Ram very short and crisp. I am not going to describe in very great detail. Why? Because Shrutam hi varanitam bhuri tvaya sita pater muhuhu. O Maharaj Parikshit, you right from your childhood you have heard about Sri Ram. Who has not heard of Sri Ram? Shukadev Goswami is saying this to Parikshit Maharaj while speaking Srimad Bhagavatam on the banks of the holy river Ganga. So Parikshit Maharaj has only 7 days left. And the 9th canto is going on. So we could say maybe the 4th day. Maybe the 4th day, 3rd or 4th day is going on. So if Shukadev Goswami starts describing the glories of Sri Ram, it's possible that it may take for all times to come, and it may roll over the 7-day period of Maharaj Parikshit. So he tells Maharaj Parikshit, I'm going to keep it very short and crisp and brief, because you have heard profusely the glorification of Sri Ramachandra. And not just you, Tasya Anucharitam Rajan Rishibihi Tattva-darshibihi. All the great sadhus, all the great rishis, all the great saints have spoken. Shrutam hi varinitam bhuri. They have heard and they have described. The word used in Sanskrit is bhuri, profusely. And tvaya, and you also have heard. Is it not, O king? This is the question in Srimad Bhagavatam. And, it's almost like a chuckle. Yeah, you have heard, is it not? And Parikshit Maharaj said, yeah, I have. I would still like to hear something. So Shukadev Goswami keeps it to only 2 chapters. And he says, Guruvarte tyakta rajyo vyacharad anuvanam padma padbhyam priyayam pani sparsha kshamabhyam rujita patarujo yo harindranujaabhyam vairupyachur panakhya Priya Viraharusha, Ropito, Bhru Vijrimba, Trastabdir Baddhasetu, Khaladavadahana, Kosalendo Vatannaha. That's a whole verse, one of those verses, where Shukadev Goswami, in one verse, gives a whole synopsis, an overview of the Ramayana. He speaks about everything in that one verse. And That's Canto 9, Chapter 10, I think text 4 in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That's that overview. It's the whole Srimad Bhagavatam in one verse. So that'll be like kind of a homework, post-class study. We won't have time to get into that verse, but it's just good for referencing. So it's interesting that even Sri Krishna in Dwapar Yuga, when he was in Dwaraka, he would hear the pastimes of Sri Ram from Treta Yuga. Even Krishna, whose pastimes we hear in the Bhagavatam, that same Sri Krishna heard the pastimes of Sri Ram while he was the king of Dwaraka. Quite interesting. And Srila Sridhar Swami, the original commentator on the Srimad Bhagavatam, when he speaks about the incarnations, he says, Rama Krishna Adi Avatarahi, the incarnations headed by Sri Ram and Sri Krishna. Matsya Kurma Varaha, the fish incarnation, the tortoise incarnation, etc., and so on and so forth. For that, Srila Sridhar Swami, the original commentator, he says, Rama Krishna Adi Avatarahi. All the incarnations headed by Sri Ram and Sri Krishna. In India, when you go the length and breadth of India, from Kashmir in the north to Kanyakumari in the south, and then Gujarat in the west to Bengal in the east, that's like the east and west and the north and south of India. You go around and you can see more than 10,000 temples, right? And if you do a statistical analysis of all the Vishnu temples, you will find maximum temples are dedicated to Sri Ram and Sri Krishna. That's how popular Sri Ram is. In fact, one time I was in Uttar Pradesh. That's the place of Sri Ram, right? And Sri Krishna, one of the states in India. So I was there and I had I got off a taxi, and suddenly two taxi drivers in India, in that place, two drivers of two different taxis, they got into a fight. Not a physical fight, but a verbal argument. And they were arguing. No, this is how it is. No, the other person says something else. And again, there was a rebuttal and they're going back and forth. So I was looking at this, not out of fun, but I was seeing if we could do something to resolve it. But by then, another taxi driver came in and he said, don't you guys have shame? Both of you are in the place of Sri Ram and this is how you behave. You both are born in the same state as Sri Ram and this is how you behave. And both taxi drivers, they backed off and they said, okay, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. So I was thinking, even till this very day, like you can dissolve and diffuse a fight between two taxi drivers by saying that you are in the state of Sri Ram and this is not how Sri Ram behaved. Now shame on you. Like, come on, this is not how you should behave. And I was amazed, the power potency of Sri Ram, even till this very day. Srila Prabhupada, he writes something fantastic and fabulous. Of course, Srila Prabhupada writes fabulous and fantastic all over the Shastra, but something in this regard which I would like to point out. Srila Prabhupada mentions that of all the anarthas that we have, lust, anger, greed, pride, etc., envy is very difficult to overcome. And Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, just by listening to the pastimes of Sri Ram, one can overcome envy. Quite fascinating, right? Quite fascinating. In the Prema Bhakti Chandrika of Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, Kama Krishna Sevarpane Krodha Bhakta Dveshi Jane Lobha Sadhu Sange Hari Katha. He says that lust can be dovetailed in Krishna's service by becoming a grihastha. Greed can be dovetailed in Krishna's service by having greed to hear in the association of senior Vaishnavas. And anger can be dovetailed in the service of Krishna by getting angry at those who refute the scriptural conclusions, right? Or those who torment the devotees. And Prabhupada, of course, gives the example of Hanuman, how he burnt Lanka and he used his anger, and how Arjuna used his anger in fighting the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So it's interesting. Srila Narottam Das Thakur mentions how we could dovetail all our negative propensities in the service of the Lord. But he doesn't speak anything about envy. It's not that you can dovetail envy in the service of Krishna by becoming envious of Krishna or something like that. It's not possible. So then the question arises, I am envious. I'm envious of the devotees, envious of Krishna, envious of anyone and everyone materially and spiritually better or equal, or whatever. How do we overcome that mentality? How do we overcome that? It's interesting. In the Ramayana, we see Hanuman, when he flies over the ocean while searching for Mother Sita, he comes across many sea monsters. And one of those sea monsters represents envy. And what does Hanuman do? He just rips that monster to pieces without any negotiation, without having any conversation, just rips, cuts through that demon. And the commentators write, because that demon represents envy and you can't dovetail that in the service of the Lord, the best thing to do is rip it to pieces, like Hanuman did. So we are like trying to fly over the ocean of material existence, and the sea monster that we face is envy. What do you do with that? Cut through pieces, rip it to shreds and pieces. Now the question is, how do I do it? To that, Prabhupada answers in the purport that by simply hearing the pastimes of Sri Ram, that enemy of our consciousness, which is envy, can be ripped to pieces. We can overcome envy because we will develop love for the Supreme Lord just by hearing about it. Isn't it fascinating? It's so beautiful. Vyasadeva has written a whole Upanishad in the name of Sri Ram. It's called as Ramatapani Upanishad. Ramatapani Upanishad, where he describes the meaning of the word Ram. And of course, Srila Prabhupada and Kaviraj Goswami used that in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Ramante yogino nante satyananda chidatmani iti rama padenasau parabrahma vidhiyate. What does Vyasadeva say? He says that all the sages, the great sages who got attracted to Sri Ram, we know the sages of Dandakaranya, who were all male in contemplative meditation, but when they looked at Sri Ram pass through, they all stood up in amazement, in jaw-dropping astonishment. How can somebody be this beautiful or handsome? How can somebody be so attractive? How can somebody be so mesmerizingly charismatic? How can somebody be so effulgent and charming? And how can somebody be so strong and intelligent and obedient and the knower of everything and the obedient follower of the Shastra? How can somebody have all these qualities in one? And the sages of Dandakaranya, they desired that may we become female and may we get married to you. So Sri Ram said, well, I have this vrat that I have taken, this very great vow that Ekapatni Vrata, that I will have only one wife. But however, we understand in the next incarnation, when he came as Krishna, all of them were accepted as the queens of Dwarka, or ultimately as the gopis of Vrindavan. So Vyasadeva, he explains Ramante yogino anante satyananda chidatmani iti rama padenasau parabrahma vidhiyate. He explains that all these sages who get attracted to Sri Ram, they're completely self-controlled. If I say I get attracted to Sri Ram, that's not a very big glorification of Sri Ram, because I get attracted even to Netflix, or I will get attracted to ice cream, racetrack ice cream or Baskin Robbins or whatever it is. So if I get attracted to temporary things of this world, and I say I get attracted to Sri Ram, well, that's not a very big glorification of Sri Ram. But look at the qualification of these sages. They almost have locks on all their senses. Like their ears have locks, virtual locks, not that they hang locks on the earlobe, but they have virtual locks in the sense that any material sound that tries to enter their ear hole can't enter. It's locked. Any material vision that comes to enter through the eye can't enter. Material smell can't enter the nostril. Material thoughts can't come to the mind. All their senses are so self-controlled and completely surrendered that nothing material can enter. But when Sri Ram walks through Dandakaranya, his voice, his glancing, his speaking, his activities, it floods through and haunts their consciousness, overfloods and takes over, hijacks their consciousness. And not just one of the senses of one of the sadhus, all the senses of innumerable sadhus, all of them pure at heart, they all get mesmerized and captivated by one person. And Vyasadeva says, that is Sri Ram. That's the definition of Sri Ram. That's how attractive he is. So the word Ram means Ramanam or Ramyate, which means he who is charming, he who is the abode of all pleasure. Now, someone will say the word Ram, when we chant in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, does it refer to Sri Ram of Ayodhya? When Srila Prabhupada was asked, Srila Prabhupada said it could refer to one of the following meanings. The first meaning, the popular one, is of course Sita Ram, right? Ram of Ayodhya. The second meaning is Ram could refer to Parshuram. There are so many devotees who worship Parshuram in Kurukshetra, the place where Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Ram could also refer to Balaram. In the Bhagavatam, we can see Rama Krishna many times. Like, for example, Hantaya Madri Rabala Haridasa Varyo Yad Rama Krishna Charana Sparasha Pramodaha. You can see Canto 10, chapter 21, text 18, Srimad Bhagavatam, where the word Rama doesn't refer to Ram as in Ayodhya or Ram as in Parshuram, but refers to Ram as in Balaram. So in the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, it could refer to Sita Ram or Parshuram or Balaram. But however, the highest conception given by our Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti and Srila Prabhupada, is Ram refers to Radharaman, Krishna, ultimately. He who frolics in Nidhivan with Srimati Radhika. That is Ram. Also in the Shastra, there's a very beautiful verse in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, which gives the definition of the word Ram for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, because sometimes devotees think if you glorify Ram, you know, didn't Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say we are supposed to Aradhyo Bhagavan Brajesha Tanaya Stadhama Vrindavanam Ramya Kajidupasana Brajavadum Varghena Ya Kalpita? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told us to go towards Radha and Krishna in Vraj, in Vrindavan. Then how come we are saying Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare in the second half of our Mahamantra? Well, the Brahma Vaivarta Puran comes to our rescue at that point and say you can maintain your nishtha, your fixed determination at the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna and still chant Ram. There's no problem. Why? Because Vyasadeva in the Brahma Vaivarta Puran, he describes Rakara Shrimati Radha, Makara Madhusudano, Dvayo Vigraha Samyogad Rama Nama Iti Kila. That Ra, Ma, these two syllables, Ra is the short form for Radha. And Ma is the short form for Madhusudan, Krishna. So Ra is Radha, Ma is Madhusudan. And when they're separated, it is Ra here and Ma there, because Radharani is here and Krishna is there. So by chanting Hare Krishna, what we're doing is, we're doing what the gopis are doing, bringing them together. So Radharani and Krishna, when they're separated, you bring them together. So Ra from Radha and Ma from Madhusudan comes together and it becomes Rama. That's the meditation when we're chanting Japa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very, very spiritually purifying experience of chanting and serving Radha and Krishna. But nonetheless, we can see Sri Ram has been offered a whole Upanishad by Vyasadeva as the Ramatapani Upanishad. In the Ramayana, we can see many, many beautiful examples of devotion. And the Ramayana, in fact, is filled with devotees. So many innumerable devotees are mentioned, whether it is Shabari or whether it's Jatayu, the vulture, or Sugriva, the king of the Vanaras in Kishkinda, Vibhishan, the brother of Ravana, and what to speak of Bharata and Lakshmana and Shatrughna and Mother Sita, etc. So many wonderful devotees. And not to forget Hanuman, the best among devotees. So in today's discussion, I would like to speak about three devotees of Sri Ram. Till now, what we were discussing is building our appreciation for the topic, building the relevance of the topic, and the greatness of this text, ultimately. But what we are going to embark upon from now, we will be talking about three devotees from the Ramayana who teach us wonderful lessons. There are many devotees, as we mentioned, but I will tell you why we picked these three devotees. The first devotee that we will pick will be Hanuman. The second devotee that we will talk about, oh, that's going to be a surprise. I'm not going to spill the beans so quick. So we'll start off with the first devotee, that is Hanumanji. And why we are starting off with Hanuman is because Hanuman represents the principle of hearing. As we know, we are on almost welcoming the appearance of Nashingadev in a fortnight. So in the prayers of Prahlad Maharaj, not in the prayers, but in the instructions of Prahlad Maharaj to his father as a conversation, we see the 9 limbs of bhakti, right? Very famous. Shravana Kirtana Smarana Vandana Pada Sevana Dasare Pujana Sakhi Jana Atma Nivedana Govinda Dasa Abhilashare. So Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Vandana, Pada, Sevana, Dasare, Pujana, Sakhijana, Atma Nivedana, Govinda Das Abhilashare. The 9 limbs of bhakti have been defined by Prahlad Maharaj, sung poetically by Govinda Das Kaviraj in his Bengali work, Bhaja Hure Mana. So the 9 limbs for record purpose are Shravanam, which means to hear about Krishna, Kirtanam, which means to glorify Krishna through japa, through kirtan, through preaching, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, which means to remember Krishna, Pada Sevanam, to serve the feet of the Lord through massaging the feet of the Lord as the deity, or serving the Lord with our feet in the form of offering obeisances or circumambulating and walking to the temple, etc. That's Pada Sevanam. 5th is Archanam, deity worship. 6th is Vandanam, to offer prayers. 7th is Dasyam, and then Sakhyam and Atmani Vedanam, which means servitude in the mood of a servant. That's the 7th. 8th is friendship, Sakhyam, and 9th is Atmani Vedanam, complete surrender. So I would wish to give one example each for all of these 9 from the Ramayana, but that's beyond the scope of today's discussion. So we will just do an example for Shravanam, an example for Kirtanam, and an example for Vishnu Smaranam or Rama Smaranam. Is that okay? So that's the link of the 3 devotees that we're going to talk about. We'll start off with Hanuman, as he represents the principle of hearing Ram Katha. How does he represent the principle of hearing Ram Katha? Let's get to the Valmiki Ramayana. In the last section of the Valmiki Ramayana in Uttarakhand, chapter 40, text 16, 17, 18, and 19, as the reference, we can see that there's a very beautiful conversation that Hanuman has with Sri Ram. The context is Sri Ram has won over the hand of Mother Sita, has destroyed Ravana, liberated Lanka, and come back to Ayodhya, the end of Ramayana. And he has been coronated as the king. Now, in his coronation, all the monkeys are present, and they are super excited to see the reunion of Mother Sita with Sri Ram. And they're super excited to see the coronation, the wonderful royal regal presence of Sri Ram as the king of Ayodhya, and not just walking in the forest with them, but being the king in Ayodhya. The monkeys are super excited. But however, as they guessed it right, the time for them to depart, leave Ayodhya and go back to their homes had come. They witnessed the historic coronation of Sri Ram as the king of Ayodhya. They saw the Abhishek. And finally, Sri Ram fulfilled all their desires. And they were all bid farewell as they went home. But one of them who was present was Hanuman. Ramchandra turns to Hanuman in this section and he says, "Oh Hanuman, you have done so much for me. There's no devotee in the whole creation who sets his body on fire for service." Now, when I think about myself, when I go for Mangalarati and the lamp is being passed around, right? Sometimes I get the good fortune of carrying the lamp around. Sometimes the lamp itself gets so hot, even to forget about putting my hand into fire, even to hold the lamp which is holding those wicks is difficult. So I have to ask for a tray so that I can keep the lamp on a tray and carry the tray around because the lamp is hot. And I think to myself, even carrying the lamp which has the wicks which are on fire is so difficult. And think about Hanuman. And that too, all of this is happening in the house of the Lord, which is the temple. But Hanuman is in a foreign land. He's in the house of Ravan. And there his tail is set on fire. And at that point, Hanuman tells himself, for me, my body is not as important as the service to Sri Ram. I have always offered arati with lamps, but I have never got a chance to offer arati with my tail. Ravana has set my tail on fire, before that fire gets extinguished, let me offer an arati to Sri Ram. And how do I do that? By using it in the service of the Lord, by burning Lanka down to ashes. So Ramchandra, he embraces Hanuman and he tells him, there is nobody in the whole creation who has done what you have done. You are dear to me as Bharat, who amidst the climate of misunderstanding. Now, if you see the life of Bharat, represents extreme testing. Bharat gets misunderstood as if he's the main masterpiece behind the whole conspiracy of Ram being exiled and banished and ousted out of Ayodhya. Bharat wasn't even there at that point. It was something that his mother did by being instigated by the maidservant Manthara. But when Bharat gets to know that this is what has happened in his absence, he refuses the kingdom. And still people won't buy his argument. They think, oh, wow, he's a wonderful actor. He first orchestrates the exile of his brother, and he's not even present in the kingdom so that nobody doubts him. And when he comes back, he acts as if he's too detached. He doesn't want anything in the kingdom. Oh, I am so detached. I don't want to be the king. I have no say in all this. Ayodhya Vasis, the residents of Ayodhya, were thinking, he's a masterclass actor. He should be given an Oscar for this. Think about all the mess he has created, and he doesn't want to act as if he's responsible. Bharat was asked to leave Ayodhya and live in the outskirts. Bharat anyway didn't want to live in Ayodhya in the absence of his brother. When Bharat came to offer last rites to his father, his departed father, who left his body thinking that Bharat was the culprit. Think about it. Bharat loves his father the most, Dasharath Maharaj, and Dasharath Maharaj was convinced Bharat was responsible. He was the one who told his mother that, with the two boons that you have, ask for the exile of Ram with the first and the coronation of myself as the king. Dasharath left his body thinking that Bharat was responsible. So when Bharat came back and he said, I want to offer last rites to my father, the sages said the last words of Dasharath Maharaj as he departed was, my body can be eaten by vultures, but I don't want my body to be touched by the sinful hands of Bharat. Now just think about it. The person whom you love the most, he departs misunderstanding you for something that you have not done. You can't even think in that direction. You would never think that. Bharat lives in Nandigram, in the outskirts of Ayodhya, in a forest. He thinks, when my brother Sri Ram is dressed in tree barks, how can I be dressed as a king? I will also be dressed in tree barks. When my brother is living in the forest, Sri Ram is living in the forest, how can I live in the palace? I will also live in the forest. When my brother is eating fruits and roots and berries, and how can I enjoy opulent food? I will also just have roots and fruits and berries. And even now, if you go to Nandigram, the place where Bharat lived all his life, especially those 14 years in separation, which was like a lifetime for him, there's nothing much in his name except something that's dug underground and not very deep. It's like 6 feet by 4 feet, right? It's a pit, and it's called as the cave of Bharat. That's where he slept. Why? Why did he dig a pit underground? Because he was saying, my brother Sri Ram is sleeping off the floor. He's sleeping off the ground. How can I sleep on the same level as my brother? I am his servant. So I should dig a pit and sleep underground so that the place where Sri Ram places his lotus feet is on my head. This was the spirit of Bharat. He was misunderstood throughout. By everyone, anyone and everyone. So much so that he bathed at 1 o'clock in the morning in the famous Sarayu River. Why? Because if he went at 3 o'clock in the morning when everyone else bathed, nobody slept till 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning. They woke up at 3 o'clock. But if he went at the same time, they would pelt stones at him, at Bharat, understanding that he is responsible for the whole conspiracy. People loved Ram. So anything and everything that caused inconvenience in the life of Sri Ram was inconveniencing them. And then the culprit, they thought, was Bharat. And they wanted to punish him. So Bharat tolerated all of that. The word Bharat in Sanskrit means Rajya Bharam Bharati Bhivarti iti Bharata. He who carried the weight. Bharam means weight, actually. The word Bharat comes from the word Bhara. Bhara means weight. He who carried the burden, the weight of misunderstandings all his life. He was misunderstood by everyone and everyone, anyone and everyone in his heart. He had that pain of being misunderstood, but he carried that burden and continued to serve Sri Ram. He who did that is Bharat. How amazing is this? Bharat served Sri Ram and Shatrughna served Lakshman. Bharat served Sri Ram and Shatrughna served Lakshman. Now the question is, between Bharat and Shatrughna, who is a bigger devotee? Who is a better devotee? The answer is Shatrughna. Why? Because Bharat served the Supreme Lord and Shatrughna served the devotee, Lakshman. So if you have two examples, one, a person who serves the Lord, and the other who serves the best devotee of the Lord, then between the two, the servant of the servant is higher than just the servant of the Lord. So Bharat served Ram, but Shatrughna served Lakshman, and Lakshman accompanied Sri Ram in the forest. Lakshman was another great example of devotion. When he entered the forest, he took a vrat, a vow, that from today, Mother Sita is my mother and Sri Ram is my father. The forest is Ayodhya and I am happy to live here forever in service to Sri Ram. It was Ram who was banished. Lakshman was not banished. Ram was banished. Mother Sita was not banished, but Mother Sita went with Sri Ram because she was the wife. So she followed her husband. But there's no rule in Shastra which says that if the older brother goes into the forest, he is punished, so the younger brother must also go. No, Lakshman could have as well lived in Ayodhya like anyone else and said, well, too sad for what happened to Ram, but I will continue to be in the kingdom. But he didn't think like that. He went with his brother. Now, Sri Ram went with his wife, Sita, but Lakshman didn't even take his wife. For 14 years, he lived without his wife, serving Sri Ram and serving Mother Sita. So that Lakshman was served by Shatrughna and Ram was served by Bharat. So the question could be between Bharat and Shatrughna, who's a better devotee? Shatrughna is a better devotee because Bharat served the Lord and Shatrughna served Lakshman, who was a devotee of the Lord. So coming back to Hanuman, I'll tell you the reason why I went to Bharat. Because in that section of the Uttarakhand, Ram embraces Hanuman and he tells him, you are as dear to me as Bharat. Now, we can't understand the statement unless we hear the glory of Bharat, unless we see the sacrifice of Bharat, the devotion of Bharat. Bharat takes on him every possible reversal in life and continues to serve Sri Ram. And Ram, when he embraces Hanuman, he says, you're as dear to me as Bharat. Hanuman, ask for a benediction and I will fulfill. Hanuman said, my Lord, I don't serve you for any benedictions, just like Prahlad Maharaj tells Nrsingadev, I'm not a businessman. My Lord, I serve you for your pleasure and satisfaction. I don't want anything from you. Hanuman, in the same way, after the coronation of Sri Ram, Hanuman mentions, my Lord, I don't want anything from you. I just want to please you and serve you. Hanuman's Sri Ramchandra said, all the monkeys have asked for benedictions and I have fulfilled. You're the best among my servants. You ask for a boon and I will fulfill. And at that point, Hanuman mentions, Sneho me paramo rajan, tvai tishtatu sarvada, bhaktischa niyata vira, bhava nanyatra gacchatu. My Lord, if you really want to give me, this verse is from Valmiki Ramayana, by the way. So Ramchandra, when he's asking this, So Hanumanji, he mentions that if you really want to give me a boon, if you really want to give me a benediction, the benediction that I want is, please give me this benediction that Sneho me paramo rajan, the love that I have in my heart, whatever affection I have in my heart, my Lord, Tvai tishtatu sarvada, may I collect all of that and invest that only at your lotus feet. And the way I want to express that is, may I receive the opportunity to hear Ram Katha for all times to come. Hanuman mentions to Sri Ram, the only benediction I want. May all the affection in my heart for anything and everything that I have in my heart, may I direct all that only for you. And may I express that by constantly hearing about your glories. I just want to hear about you, my Lord. We see in the pastimes of Prithu Maharaj, he mentions the only desire I have is, may I have millions and millions of years so that I can hear Krishna Katha, right? Kunti Devi, she says, may my consciousness flow like the Ganges river, Ganga. Ganga appears at Gomukh and reaches the ocean at Ganga Sagar. But while she flows, she has so many obstacles. There are big, big boulders and pebbles and rocks, and she has to cross through so many logs of wood, but she just makes her way and she goes on. And she finally reaches the ocean. In the prayers of Queen Kunti mentions, may my mind be like the flowing of the Ganga and go through all obstacles and finally reach the ocean of your lotus feet, my Lord. Hanuman mentions the same thing. Said, my Lord, I just want the desire. I just want the opportunity to hear about you constantly. Shravanam. Hanuman stands for Shravanam. May I constantly hear about you. And bhava na anyatra gacchatu. Please give me this benediction. May I not hear anything else. May my mind not be tempted and allured and attracted to anything else or the glories of any other person except your lotus feet. Sri Ramachandra fulfills. Yatra yatra raghunata kirtanam tatra tatra kritamastakanjalim bashpavari paripurna lochanam marutim namata rakshasantakam. The benediction given by Sri Ramachandra is Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam. Oh Hanuman, I bless you. Whenever and wherever there is Kirtan and Katha, the classes, the discourses, and the Kirtan performances regarding me, Yatra Yatra Raghunatha Kirtanam, wherever I am glorified, Tatra Tatra Kritamastakanjalim. I bless you. You will be present in that assembly with folded palms and tears streaming from your eyes, full of affection for me down your cheeks. And this will nourish you in your path of bhakti. I give you this benediction, Hanuman. Whenever and wherever there is glorification, my glorification, you will be present there. In the Bhagavatam, in the 5th canto, we see Hanuman offers prayers to Sri Ram. And he says, Na janmanonam mahatana saubhagam na vak na buddhi na kriti tosha heto taya visrishthan apino vanaukasas chakara sakhe bata lakshmanagrajah. Hanuman, when he offers prayers in the Bhagavatam in the 5th canto to Sri Ramachandra from Kim Purusha Varsha, Hanuman mentions that, my Lord, you are so kind to me. Na janmanonam, I don't have a Brahminical birth. Mahatana saubhagam, I don't have nice impressions, devotional practice of past life. Navak, I can't even speak properly. Navak na buddhi, I am not intelligent. Who's saying all this? Hanuman. In his humility, of course. We don't believe him. If he's not intelligent, how can he serve the Lord the way he does, the way he did and the way he does? But in his humility, he says, Na janmanunam, I am not a Brahmana by birth. Mahatana saubhagam, I don't have past life credits. Na vak, I can't speak properly. Na buddhi, I'm not intelligent. Na akriti, I don't even have physical beauty. Tosha heto, to please you. Tayavi srishtan apino vanaukasas, I don't even have a home to host you. I live off the forest. And my Lord, When I came to your lotus feet to become your servant, you're so kind. You didn't accept me as your servant, but Chakara Sakhe Bata Lakshmana Grajaha, you tried to embrace me as a friend. Not accept the servant as a master does, but you tried to embrace me like the best friend. So through all this, we can understand Hanuman gets the benediction of constantly hearing Ram Katha. Now the question is, how long does Ram Katha go? Ram Katha is eternal. Ram was glorified for all times to come in the past and in the future and in the present, which means, according to the benediction of Sri Ram, Hanuman should also be eternal. And this is why he's one of the Chiranjeevis, which means he is still present on the earth. They explain that there are 7 personalities who are eternal, present. Parashuram is one of them, and Ashwathama is one of them, Vyas is one of them, and Hanuman is one of them, many more. So Hanuman is eternally present. So even in this assembly, I would say, because we're discussing about Sri Ram, Hanuman is present. Just that I can't see him, but he is present, listening and blessing all of us. So this is the first example for today. The example of a devotee in Ramayana who represents the process of hearing. Second example, a devotee who exemplifies the process of chanting. After Shravanam comes Kirtanam. So who's the devotee in Ramayana who represents glorification or chanting or Kirtanam? And that is, as many of us have rightly guessed in the heart, that is Valmiki Muni himself, the writer of the Valmiki Ramayana. Who was Valmiki? He was a personality by the name Ratnakar. He was a thief. he would plunder, he would kill animals. And that was his past, unfortunately. But by chanting the holy name of Sri Ram, he couldn't even chant Rama. He started chanting Ma Ra, the other way, flipping it backwards. And interestingly, this is a pun. Why? Because in Sanskrit, the word Mara comes from the word Maranam, which means to kill. So if you're sinful, he's teaching all of us, if we're sinful, we're living a life of sin, the holy name will not come in the right order in our tongue. We will not be able to chant. So he was not able to chant Rama. But because Maranam, or killing, death, was natural for him, because that's what he was doing as a plunderer, it was easier for him to say Mara than Rama, the other way. But the good thing is, the holy name doesn't see Shuddham va Ashuddham, whether it is Shuddha or Ashuddha, whether the chanting is proper, the pronunciation is proper, or the order is proper. In Hari Bhakti Vilas, Srila Sanatan Goswami describes, if someone says Raja Mahishi, all of us can say Raja Mahishi. What did we actually say? Raja means king and Mahishi means queen. So king, queen. Srila Sanatan Goswami says, no, the Lord is very kind. He takes the first syllable of both words and gives you the credit of chanting it. Raja, the first syllable is Ra. And Mahishi, the first syllable is Ma. And although we didn't intend to put them together, the Lord doesn't hear Raja Mahishi, but he hears Ra from Raja, Ma from Mahishi, and gives us the benefit of chanting Ram. That's how kind the Lord is. So Valmiki Muni, he chanted and chanted and chanted and chanted and chanted constantly, so much so that there were ant hills formed over him. Ant hills, just like it's described for Hiranyakashipu. He was reduced to a bag of bones. Same with Valmiki Muni. He held his life air within the bag of bones. And he was chanting Mara, 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 Mara. So except for the first syllable, you take the first syllable out and you still hear Rama, Rama, Rama. Because he said Mara, 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 Mara. So it still sounds as Ram, 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 Ram. And as he chanted, all his skin and flesh were eaten up and he didn't even realize he was in Mahasamadhi. And it was described, it was Narada Muni who revived him and empowered him to write the Valmiki Ramayana. When Narad Muni appears to the scene in the ashram of Valmiki Muni asks, he in fact welcomes his guru, Narada Muni. He offers obeisances to him, circumambulates him, gives him a sitting place, washes his lotus feet, and asks him submissive questions. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tattvadarshana. Chapter 4, text 34 in the Gita, Krishna explains that we first serve the spiritual master and then we ask favorable questions. So Valmiki Muni, he did the same thing. He welcomed his spiritual master, he served him, and then he asked him, Konu asmin sampratam loke gunavan kascha viryavan dharmajnascha kritajnascha satyavakyo dridavratah. It's the start of the Valmiki Ramayana. He asked Narada Muni that, is there anyone on the planet at the moment who is the embodiment of all good qualities? And he lists different qualities. And as a response to that, Narada Muni speaks 100 verses, 100 straight verses. And what does he speak in those 100 verses? He gives an overview of the whole Ramayana. He speaks the whole pastime of Sri Ram. He says, yes, the person whom you're trying to search for, the embodiment of all good qualities, is the Supreme Lord Sri Ram. And this is his life's sketch. And very briefly, like highlights, just giving the main points of the pastime. In 100 verses, Narada Muni speaks Ramayana to Valmiki Muni. And then he empowers him. In his heart, he empowers him in that interaction. Valmiki Muni listens to the whole thing. And then he goes to take bath with another sage by the name Bharadvaja Rishi. As he goes to take bath, he sees the beautiful pair of Krauncha Pakshis. Krauncha Pakshi are two white birds who look like cranes actually, but they are way more beautiful than cranes. Krauncha Pakshi. They are described, a male one and a female one, two white complexioned birds. And being male and female, they were a couple and they were, happy together. Valmiki Muni looks at them and he remembers the Supreme Lord and he says, my Lord, thank you. Thank you for giving us a display of pure love in all species. How much you love us can be seen by how much these birds love each other. Thank you for giving this such a beautiful display. And as Valmiki Muni is looking at those two birds, a hunter from nowhere shoots an arrow. The arrow pierces through the chest of the male bird. And the male bird now, who was actually white in complexion, has become red in complexion because of the blood dripping through his body. The white bird, the female white bird, is crying in pain. And the male bird dies. Valmiki Muni, you can imagine, he gets wild in anger. It's difficult to note whether the body of the male was red or whether the mind of Valmiki was red, because he was angry, he was fuming, and he cursed the hunter. Ma nishada pratishtatvam agama shashwati sama yad krauncha mithunadekam avadhi kama mohita. I curse you, O hunter. May you lose all your pleasure and may you lose all your prestige for separating the male from the female when they were together. This is sinful. You can imagine. This is what Valmiki was doing before as Ratnakar. And look, the chanting of the holy name got such powerful transformation in his consciousness. He not just stopped doing what he was doing, but now he was ready to curse someone who did the same thing. He saw that to be as abominable. There's nothing else in this world. It was most abominable. So he cursed the hunter. And as soon as he cursed the hunter, that may you suffer and may you lose all your prestige and honor, he felt so regretful and he was remorseful for what he did. A devotee doesn't behave the way I did. You can't curse someone. He's a hunter, he shot, and you should be detached. Why are you getting affected? That's what Valmiki was telling himself. And at that point, Brahma appears to the scene. And Brahma mentions, Valmiki, don't beat yourself down. You please don't beat yourself down. The words that came from your lips as a curse was actually pronounced by me. By me. Machandanam chate brahman pravritteyam saraswati. It was me who kept Saraswati on your tongue. So what you pronounced, you didn't pronounce. I made you say that. So Valmiki said, why would you make me curse someone? Brahmaji said, it wasn't a curse. It wasn't a curse. What you said seemed to be a curse for you, but it's actually the conclusion of the Ramayana. The hunter there represents Ravana. And what did he do? He separated the couple, Sita and Ram. And by you saying, oh hunter, may you lose all your prestige, what you're actually saying is, oh Ravana, may you get doomed for trying to separate Sita from Sri Ram. And that's the storyline for the Ramayana. And then Brahmaji explained, or another meaning of the same curse is that all glories to the hunter. Who's the hunter here? Ram. And who's the male bird? Ravana. Who's the female bird? Sita. Because the male bird, Ravana, tried to come close to Mother Sita, it was hunter in the form of Sri Ram who shot the arrow on the male and killed him. So all glories to the hunter. Brahmaji explained, oh Valmiki, what seemed to be a curse from your lips was actually pronounced by me, which is the ultimate story of the Ramayana. And I empower you, O Valmiki, the 100 verses that you heard from Narada. Now you expand upon it and you compose a text of your own, as much as 24,000 Sanskrit verses. How are you going to do it? I will empower you. So you hear 100 verses from your guru, and now you get empowered by his guru to expand that into 24,000 Sanskrit verses. And why was Valmiki Muni empowered? Because of his constant chanting of Sri Ram Nam, the name of Sri Ram. Because he was a hunter and he went through the purification process of constantly chanting Kirtanam. He got empowered. And when he got empowered, he asked Brahmaji, what will be the potency of what I'm going to write? And Brahmaji blesses Valmiki Muni that yavat tishtanti saraya girayaha saritascha mahitale tavat Rama Katha kirti twatkrita prachalishyati. Brahmaji said, as long as the mountains and the oceans survive on earth, O Valmiki, I bless you. Your Valmiki Ramayana will survive that long. Your glorification of Sri Ram is going to be as eternal as the sun and the moon and the mountains and the oceans. So you write, and I will empower you. So much so that Valmiki Muni wrote his magnum opus, Valmiki Ramayana. And he initially just chanted the names of Ram and he got empowered. And now in his empowered state, he wrote the names, the forms, the qualities, the pastimes, the abode, the associates, and the service of Sri Ram. So who can do Kirtanam of Sri Ram as much as Valmiki Muni? He's the embodiment of all glorification. So much so that there is a popular story that one time Valmiki Muni was speaking on the Ramayana. And he said, when Hanuman reached Lanka, he saw the street was filled with white flowers. Was full of white flowers, white colored flowers. So in that assembly, Hanuman was present. So he jumped up and he said, oh, Valmiki, no, they weren't white in complexion. They were not white in color. They were red in color. They were red flowers. Valmiki Muni said, Hanuman, you don't know. They were white flowers. Hanuman said, I was the one who went there. They were red flowers. Valmiki Muni said, they were actually white. But because you were so angry, O Hanuman, in finding Mother Sita and not being able to find her and being obstructed by so many demons, you became so angry. Your consciousness was colored red. So even when you were seeing white colored flowers, you were seeing them as red. And Hanuman said, oh, maybe that's true. So between Hanuman and Valmiki, although Hanuman actually went through the pastime, Valmiki is taken as a higher authority because he glorified the Lord. Somebody who sees the pastime, more glorious than that is the person who glorifies the pastime. So imagine if there is a sadhu sitting in Radha Kund seeing the pastime of Radha and Krishna. That's wonderful. But greater than that is Srila Prabhupada, who saw the pastime and came and gave it to the whole world in the form of preaching, glorification. So between Hanuman, who actually experienced, and Valmiki, who actually chanted the glories, Valmiki is taken as a higher authority. So we saw the first example as Hanuman, the emblem of hearing. and then Shravanam, and then the second example as Valmiki, as the emblem of Kirtanam or glorification. And then the final piece of our discussion today is Smaranam, to remember the Lord. All the devotees in the Ramayana remembered Sri Ram, but the example that comes to our heart as the epitome of hearing is Mother Sita. Who could have imagined the intense remembrance that Mother Sita went through when she was being separated from the association of Sri Ram? One very great Acharya from South India, he writes, actually the book should be renamed as not Ramayan, but Sitayan. He says, because it was Mother Sita whose devotion is being extolled and experienced in the pages of Ramayana. One great Acharya, one great devotee of Sri Ram by the name Tulsidas, who also wrote a version of the Ramayana later. He came to Vrindavan once and he started crying because everybody was chanting Radhe Radhe, the name of Radharani, the eternal consort and pleasure potency of Sri Krishna. They were not saying Krishna, Krishna, they were saying Radhe Radhe. So Goswami Tulsidas, he started to cry. When he came back to Ayodhya, he was still crying. Devotee said, why are you crying? He said, because everyone there chants Radhe Radhe. They're all so intelligent that they're taking shelter of Krishna by chanting the name of Radha. He said, unfortunately, I have been cheated. All my life I chanted Ram, Ram. When will that day come when I will chant Sita, Sita? I will take shelter of Mother Sita to obtain the lotus feet of Sri Ram. Right? Mother Sita teaches us a very beautiful principle. The whole story of Ramayana, from Mother Sita's perspective, teaches us the philosophy that Srila Prabhupada taught us. And what is that? Mother Sita is with Sri Ram, and then she gets attracted to a golden deer. And as soon as there is attraction to the golden deer, there is kidnapping. Ravana kidnaps Mother Sita, takes her to Lanka. On the way, Jatayu loses his life. As Mother Sita is crying in separation, Sri Ram is crying in separation. He befriends the monkey head Sugriva. They build a bridge over the ocean, and then Sri Ram comes, of course, sends Hanuman with a ring and as a messenger. And then finally, Sri Ram comes and rescues Mother Sita. So what is the lesson for us? Although Mother Sita is the pleasure potency, the eternal consort, the lesson that we can learn is we are like Mother Sita. We are with Krishna in Krishna consciousness, but then we get distracted to temporary golden flickering deer of this world. It could be a car, it could be a new phone, it could be a new laptop, it could be name, fame, recognition, it could be money, it could be association with the opposite sex, it could be anything, any allurement in this world. Mother Sita got attracted to a deer. For us, it could be something else. And as soon as we get attracted to something else, and what happens is it causes separation from the Supreme Lord. Maya Devi comes in the form of Ravana, or we can say the mind comes in the form of Ravana. And the mind is a very big trickster. He will give us very nice, positive, Krishna conscious ideas, but it's just to doom us. The mind will say, why don't you buy a bigger car? Why don't you buy this technological gadget? Why don't you buy this latest iPhone? And then, of course, the mind will, the intelligence will say, but we don't need it. This is unnecessary material sense gratification. And then the mind will say, no, you can dovetail that in Krishna's service. Anasaktasya vishayan yathartham upayunjata nirbande Krishna sambande yukta vairagyam uchyate prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubhi parityago vairagya phalgu kathyate bhaktirasamrita sindhu. That which can be employed in the service of Krishna is proper renunciation, right? So the mind will say, so why are we saying the mind tricks? Because Ravana didn't come as Ravana. He came as a sadhu. He came as a saint. So the mind will come as a saintly proposal, will bring in a saintly proposal. But actually he's a demon, ready to kidnap us away from the presence of Sri Ram, that is Krishna consciousness. And as soon as he kidnaps us and puts us in the Lanka of this material body, lifetime after lifetime, we get so many material bodies. That's like the mind, Ravana, taking the soul, Sita, and putting in the Lanka of another material body, which only gives us pain and suffering. And as we are being kidnapped by Maya Devi, what happens? Many Jatayus come and lay down their lives as sacrifice. So many acharyas come, they bleed to death. Not literally, but in their spirit. Prabhupada Saraswati Thakur and our Prabhupada both said gallons and gallons of blood are lost in getting one jiva back home, back to Godhead. So Jatayu, the vulture bird, represents all our acharyas. They get attacked, but they still try to save the Sita of our soul, our consciousness, away from the Ravana of the mind, to bring us back to the Ram, that is Sri Krishna, our eternal master. And as we get kidnapped and as we are crying in separation from the Lord is also crying in separation from us. When will that day come when this jiva will come back to me? And then what happens? We are helpless. We can only remember the Lord and cry like Mother Sita did. She was in Lanka. What could she have done? She can't write letters. She can't have a deity. She can chant japa. She can chant Gayatri. She can go for yatras. She can't do anything. She can't build a temple of Ram in Lanka. But the only limb of bhakti that Mother Sita was constantly doing was remembering the Lord. And if I hope we're all able to follow the parallel of Mother Sita and Ram with the Krishna conscious philosophy, that Mother Sita is with Sri Ram, she gets distracted to a golden deer like we do, and we get kidnapped by the mind called as Ravana and put in the Lanka of repeated birth and death, where we are struggling. And the only thing that we can do is remember the Lord. Antakale cha mameva smaran muktva kalevaram ya prayati sa madbhavam yati nastyatra samshayam yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajyatante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kauntaya sada tad bhava bhavita. Chapter 8, text 5 and 6 Gita. Or manmana bhava madbhaktau. Chapter 9, text 34 Gita. Krishna is talking, just remember me. Smartavyam satatam Vishnu vismartavyo na jatuchit sarva vidhi nishedasyur etayoreva kinkaraha. Vishnu Puran. Just remembering Krishna and never forgetting him is the king of all rules. Akama sarva kamova moksha kama udaradhi tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Canto 2, chapter 3 Bhagavatam. That whoever we may be, wherever, in whatever circumstance, if we remember the Lord with intensity, we will be saved. Tesham evanukam partham. Tesham aham samudhartam mrityu samsara sagarat. Krishna says in the Gita, chapter 12, that I will lift up the living entity. I will be the swift rescuer of the living entity who remembers me. So Mother Sita is teaching us, if we remember Krishna, while we are in the Lanka of repeated birth and death, kidnapped by the mind called as Ravana, away from our Ram, and if we remember him constantly, what will happen? Two things will happen. Ram will send a Hanuman to our home. What does that mean? Hanuman represents Guru Maharaj, Guru Dev, Srila Prabhupada. And literally you can see Srila Prabhupada is like Hanuman, literally. Why? We can see that just like Hanuman jumped over the ocean, Srila Prabhupada jumped over the ocean on the Jaladuta. He came on the ocean. And just like Hanuman had sea monsters to obstruct him, Srila Prabhupada had heart attacks on the ocean to try to deflate his spirit. But just like Hanuman went searching for Sita in Lanka, Prabhupada came into the Lanka of the material civilization to search for Sita in the form of devotion. And his tail was set on fire. So many reversals in his life. But what did he do? Like Hanuman, he jumped and burned down the material civilization, the Western civilization, atheistic civilization. Prabhupada did that. And he rescued the Sita of Bhakti in the lives of one and all and gave them a chance to be reunited with Sri Ram, that is Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So we were mentioning the first thing that Sri Ram does when the Sita of our consciousness is constantly remembering him in separation, the first thing that Sri Ram does is he sends a Hanuman in the form of spiritual master. Brahmande Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna in the form of Sri Ram, he sends Guru in the form of Hanuman to come and rescue us. And how does the Guru come? Sri Ram gave his own ring to Hanuman. What is that ring? That ring represents the holy name. So Krishna gives his holy name to the spiritual master and says, you take this to rescue the living entity. And Srila Prabhupada came, Tompkins Square Park, only with the ring of Sri Ram, which is chanting of the holy names. Srila Prabhupada said, I had no other shelter. I have heard in the tapes of Srila Prabhupada mentioned from 2 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock in the evening, 3 hours every single day, I would simply chant under the tree. So what was the potency? It was Hanuman, like Prabhupada, carrying the ring of Ram in the form of the holy name to find Sita, all of us, in the Lanka of the Western civilization, the material civilization. It's amazing. That's the first thing the Lord does. When we are sincerely remembering him, he will send the spiritual master. And then when we welcome the spiritual master like Mother Sita did, she welcomed Hanuman. She saw Hanuman as the representative of Ramachandra. So when we see the spiritual master as the representative of Ram and follow his instructions, the second thing will happen. What is that? Ram is ready to build a bridge over the ocean and come and wage a war against Ravana to find Mother Sita. What does that mean? The Supreme Lord himself crosses the ocean, destroys all our material desires, fights a battle with Maya Devi and kidnaps us happily back in his service. And all of this happened in the life of Mother Sita only because she remembered the Lord constantly. What level of surrender? When Mother Sita was married to Ram, she came from Janak Maharaj's house and she was being pampered as a child. Even till the present generation, we see fathers love their daughters so much that they're always pampering them. It's just a tradition seen everywhere, most places. So Janak Maharaj, he pampered his daughter so much that whenever Mother Sita would step, he had his servants fill up that whole street with rose petals so that whenever she lands her lotus feet, it would always land on rose petals. And still her lotus feet was so soft that when she would place her lotus feet on rose petals, the impression of the lotus petal and the rose petal and the lotus petal would come on the sole of her feet because her feet were softer than the rose and the lotus petals. And that Mother Sita agreed to come to the forest when Sri Ramchandra was banished. She was ready to come. Sri Ramchandra said, "What will you do there?" Mother Sita said, "Yas tvaya sahasa sargo nirayo yas tvaya vina iti janan param pritim gaccha rama maya saha." Oh Ram, please understand. Wherever I am with you, that is heaven for me. And wherever I am without you, that is hell. Do you want me to live in hell or heaven? He said heaven. So she said, take me with you. Being with you is heaven for me. So Sri Ramchandra asked, these are verses from the Ramayana. Sri Ramchandra asked Mother Sita, but what will you do in the forest? I will take you to the forest, but what will you do there? And Mother Sita said, Yaditvam prastitam durgam vanam adhyaiva raghava agrataste gamishyami mridante kushakantakan. That, O Ram, what I will do is, when you walk, I will walk in front of you. And I will uproot and take all the thorns away so that when you walk, it's peaceful. It's pleasurable. So Ramchandra said, okay, come with me to the forest. If this is your promise that you will walk in front of me and take all the thorns away, I have no problem. But please tell me, dear devotees, who was the biggest thorn at that time? It was Ravana. So Mother Sita walked ahead of Sri Ram by going to Lanka first to uproot the greatest thorn at that time in the form of Ravan, so that when Ram walks in, it is peaceful. I hope everyone understood and got the metaphor. She said, I will walk in front of you and uproot the thorns. Where did she walk ahead? Before Ram came to Lanka, she went to Lanka first to uproot the greatest thorn, that is Ravan. So in this way, Mother Sita teaches us that if we constantly remember Sri Ram, Ram will rescue us through Guru and personally by coming. So in the discussion today, just to quickly wrap up, we first saw the importance and the glories of Ramayana and the glories of Sri Ram, the glories of the glories of Sri Ram. By hearing, we overcome envy, and how so many acharyas have spoken such sweet things about Sri Ram. Then we mentioned how out of the 9 limbs of bhakti, the top 3 are to hear about the Lord, to sing about the Lord, and to remember him, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Smaranam. And as examples, we mentioned how Hanuman represents hearing, and Valmiki represents chanting, Shravanam and Kirtanam, and how Mother Sita represents Smaranam, which is to remember. Thank you very much, everyone. Vancha kalpatrubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Valmiki Ramayana ki jai, Sita Ram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman ki jai, Patita Pavan Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Premanande, Hari 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 Bo. Back to you, Sarvatma Prabhu.
Well, thank you. That was another mesmerizing evening with you. There's some hands raised there. What I want to do is see if I can upload the link, because we are streaming directly to our YouTube channel. I think the chat is disabled. So
I can enable that, Prabhuji.
Yeah, please do. And I'm gonna thank you. And I'm gonna put to everyone. This is our YouTube channel, so they can see, they can hear you again, because it's never enough. So are you okay with letting the devotees ask questions about your topic, hopefully?
Sure, Prabhuji.
So let's go in order. Please, Tanvi Desai, unmute yourself and ask away. I think you have to unmute. Okay. Are you still host?
So I am not the host, Prabhuji, so I'm not able to do it.
Okay.
I'll do it now. I was just disabling the focus mode so that we can see the devotees when they ask questions.
Okay. Thank you. So Tanvi Desai.
Sarvatma Prabhu, I think you're on mute. So the host, I kindly request if there's something can be done for this. Yeah.
Yeah, he already took care of that. So
okay.
I think they can be unmuted. So Tanvi Desai, please ask away.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. When we see the life of great devotees, we see how much struggle they did. So we see that how much vikars we have in our life, and so our destination towards Krishna is very far away, and so it demotivates us. So the thing is that we can't even enjoy material bliss, and we can't even enjoy spiritual bliss. So we are in the middle, and so it demotivates bhakti a lot. So what to do in such a situation?
So the question is, till the time we don't get taste on the path of bhakti, we are somewhere in the middle where we can't enjoy materially and we can't enjoy spiritually. So what do? We have to understand that between the two, the sustainable joy, the sustainable happiness is that of spiritual happiness. So even if we don't get pleasure at this point, we continue on the process with determination, with faith, with confidence. Utsaha nishchayat dhairyat. We chant the holy name, we attend the morning program, we study Prabhupada's books, we hear Krishna Katha, we serve the Vaishnavas, we continue to assist in the preaching mission of Mahaprabhu, and we will find taste. For sure, we will find taste. The reason we don't find taste is because one of the following: either we are not chanting attentively, or we are breaking the regulative principle, or we are eating something that is not prasadam, or we are criticizing and offending the Vaishnavas. If one of these four things are there, then Krishna will not give us taste. So please continue on the path of bhakti, and very soon everything will be very blissful. Okay, you can take the next question.
Yes, thank you so much.
You can kindly mute yourself once done. Thank you. Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Prabhuji, how to do attentive chanting, because I don't know. I'm trying for last 2 years. No, sorry, for the last 1.5 years, but still I'm not able to do. I'm trying my best. Even I chant in the early morning, but still I'm facing this problem. I read the Nama Breath book and always used to listen on holy name, but still I'm facing this problem. That's why I'm not making advancement in spiritual life. and it is so much discourages for me.
The question is how to be attentive in japa. The devotee is saying, I have read the Namamrita book based on the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. I'm waking up early in the morning and I'm still chanting, and still I feel very discouraged and demotivated. Please don't. Rupa Goswami says, before the stage of taste, ruchi, comes the taste called the stage called nishtha, where we are fixed. Surrender means whether we have taste or we don't have taste, we continue to serve Krishna. Ashlisheva padaratam pinashtumam adarshanan marmahatam karotu va yatha tatha va vidadhatu lampato matprana natastu sa eva na paraha. What this means is, my Lord, whether you give me taste or you don't give me taste, I will continue to chant the holy name. Imagine if we say, I will chant only when I get taste. That is conditional. How is that devotion? You get taste from the Lord, therefore you're doing it. But surrender means, my Lord, even if I have no taste, even if I get no reciprocation from you, I wholeheartedly surrender to you. I wholeheartedly love you. I will chant your names because I know it pleases you. Whether it pleases me or no, whether my mind is absorbed or no, whether I get taste or no, that's Krishna's problem. That's Krishna's headache. Let Krishna take that onus. Let him take that responsibility of giving me taste. My duty is to utter and constantly chant his holy names and constantly remember him. And I will do that. My Lord, you want to give me taste? So be it. If you don't want to give me taste, no problem. At least don't distract me off the path. Let me continue. Right? So you stay with the association of devotees, continue to read, wake up early in the morning, sit and chant and hear the holy name. Try to remember some deity or the picture or the deity that you can connect with. Try to remember something spiritual. Have a prayerful mood. My Lord, please give me taste. My Lord, please cleanse my heart. Let me get good Vaishnav qualities. You be in a prayerful mood and Krishna will definitely reciprocate. Okay? Let's move on to the next question.
Thank you, Prabhuji, so much.
Meera V, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Prabhuji, why do we pray जब कृष्णा को सब कुछ पता ही है और मेरे को ऐसा लगता है प्रे करते कि I'm so insignificant, तो मेरी prayers कुछ change भी कैसे कर सकती है?
So the question is, please go ahead. Okay, so the question is, why should we pray? When Krishna knows everything, why should we pray? Well, Krishna knows everything, but he knows the theoretical aspect of it, but he doesn't know your emotions. He knows theoretically this is what he wants, but he doesn't know the emotions, because that's what's there in a devotee's heart, which God can't know. The proof that Krishna can't know what a devotee feels is, this is why Krishna became Mahaprabhu. He wanted to be a devotee. If he knew, being Krishna, how it feels to be Radha, why would he become Gaur? Krishna became Gauranga because he doesn't know what Radha feels. So he knows theoretically, but Krishna doesn't know the heart of a devotee. So when a devotee expresses it, Krishna melts in devotion, in love for him. That's why whenever there are prayers, Prahlad Maharaj offers prayers, Dhruva Maharaj offers prayers, Draupadi offers prayers, Gajendra offers prayers, Brahma offers prayers. Krishna is always present. So the art of offering prayers is certainly very sacred. And as far as your question is concerned, I am very insignificant. Will Krishna listen to my prayers? Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has said, Shadanga Sharanagati hoibe jahar, tahara prarthana sune Sri Nanda Kumar. That Krishna listens to the prayers of those who are surrendered. That's whose prayers Krishna listens. Then the question is, well, I'm not surrendered. Will Krishna listen to my prayers? Well, Prabhupada said, when Prabhupada was asked how many pure devotees are on the planet, Prabhupada said, how many are there in ISKCON? He asked Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Prabhupada said, then Tamal Krishna Maharaj gave a number. Prabhupada said, that's the number of pure devotees. Although all of us are not pure, but we are on the path of purity. Right? So we are not surrendered, but we are on the path of surrender. We are following Prabhupada. If you follow Prabhupada, Krishna is very pleased with you, no doubt about it, because nobody preached Krishna consciousness like Prabhupada. This is history. Everybody knows this. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ya idam paramam guhyam mad bhakteshu abhidasyati bhakti mai param kritva mame vaishyasya samshayam. that if somebody preaches my glories, they're very dear to me. So Prabhupada preached everywhere. So he's dearmost to Krishna. And if we follow Prabhupada, then Krishna will become very pleased. So we may not be pure, we may not be surrendered, but we are on the path of surrender. So Krishna will listen to our prayers, however insignificant we are, or however insignificant our prayers are. So we should not lose hope. We can take one last question for the day in the interest of time. Sahadev Prabhu, please go ahead.
Krishna, thank you so much, Prabhuji. It's a very, very wonderful class. Thank you. Prabhuji, my question is about how Dasharatha died in an anxiety that his son Bharat is responsible for Ram's problems, but like it's so painful to hear the pains that Bharat had to go through, like digging like a cave and laying in there. But my question is, what should we do as struggling devotees when we are falsely accused of something we never did? How do we become strong and continue our devotional service and do not let such false accusations take us away from devotional service? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, very, very important question. Sahadev Prabhu is raising this point that how should we behave when we are in a situation where we are falsely accused? Now, Bharat was an exemplary example, but what are we expected to do and how should we ideally behave when we are falsely accused? Well, when there are situations where there are confusions and misunderstandings, we can try our best to express our side of the story. And there's nothing wrong in doing that. Krishna's given us intelligence. Krishna's given us mouth. We can try our best to explain our side of the story. But if the other person doesn't want to believe it, or believes it, but doesn't want to really put their heart into that and still holds on to their old opinion, which is false, what else can we do? We can politely, yet emphatically, affirmatively put our foot down and say, this is our side of the story, and with proofs or whatever it takes, provided the other person is ready to listen. Right? If the other person is not ready to listen, we try our best and then we tolerate, thinking that this is what Krishna wants me to go through for my purification, and I will do that. Maybe in my past life, I may have done something because of which I get this in return. I'm reminded of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Gopal Krishna Maharaj was explaining that when Srila Prabhupada came, he was traveling. It was 1969, I believe. 1968 or 1969. Srila Prabhupada came to Montreal, Canada. So Prabhupada came for one program, and it was at a Hare Krishna. My humble request is to kindly mute the mic. There's some mic which is unmute. Thank you. So Gopal Krishna Maharaj explains that Prabhupada came 1968 or 69, and he happened to speak in a place which was a place of those who have Catholic faith, right? There was a setup of a church. Prabhupada gave a very beautiful talk. And it so happened that when Prabhupada said any questions, there were no questions from the nuns or the father or none of the authorities. But one of the persons in Prabhupada's entourage who was arranging the talk, he got up and he started criticizing Prabhupada. He said, I thought you were a very great saint and that's why I got you here. And now you're preaching your philosophy to the Christians. You know, you can keep your philosophy to yourself. Why are you trying to speak to them? There's no need. And he was trying to challenge and insult Srila Prabhupada. And this was very embarrassing for the devotees, because it's not that someone from outside was doing it. It was someone in the entourage, in the internal party who arranged. He was doing it. Prabhupada didn't say anything. Later, Srila Prabhupada called Gopal Krishna Maharaj and said, can you call that person? I want to talk to him. And Srila Gopal Krishna Maharaj said, but he spoke like this about you and he insulted you in public, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada smiled and he said, maybe in my past life, I would have done that to him. And this is why he did this to me, you know. So maybe I'm the one responsible. And Srila Gopal Krishna Maharaj said, my heart just sunk seeing Prabhupada's humility and compassion. Here is a sadhu coming from Vrindavan to save the world. And he's saying, maybe I would have done that to him in my past life. So my point is, when we are accused, we can try to speak our side of the story in a respectable, responsible, Vaishnav way. But if it's not bringing in so much change in the circumstance, we tolerate. We tolerate, and we think that that's what Krishna wants me to go through. We can see the example of this in the life of Srivas Thakur. He was actually closing the doors at night to do kirtan with Mahaprabhu. But people in the neighborhood, they kept meat and liquor outside his house only to defame him. So that in the morning when devotees see, they would think, look, this is what he does behind closed doors on the pretext of kirtan. This is what he's doing. And what would Srivas do? He would open the door and call everyone and say, look, this is what I do. This is the real me. All of you, please don't think I'm saintly. This is what I do. So that's another extreme where Srivas wouldn't even refute. He would just accept it as Krishna's will. But since we are not there, we can at least politely try to share our thoughts. And if it doesn't work, we will just take it as Krishna's will. But the worst response would be to start criticizing people involved there. Everyone who's involved in the whole thing, to criticize, to blame, to complain, to say he said this, but I never said this. I don't know why she's doing. To get into all of this is the worst response, because that's what humans do. That's a human response. It's a normal human response. But that's not a divine response. Is that okay? Thank you. Back to you, Sarvatma Prabhu. I think I'm done for the day. You're on mute again, and you're not able to unmute. So the host, I request you with folded palms to give me an opportunity to hear. Yes.
Here we go. Thank you so very much. Just a couple of things. One is directed to you in the chat. They want to know who are the other eternal persons besides Vyasa, Parasuram, and Hanuman. So can you recite them from the top of your head?
Unfortunately, no.
Okay. All right. Well, so we know three. You mentioned a fourth one. I can't remember the name.
Ashwatthama.
Okay, Ashwatthama, fourth.
But I am not able to remember the rest.
That's
okay,
fine.
Here it is. Ashwatthama, Bali Maharaj, Vyasadev, Hanuman, Vibhishan, Parshuram, Kripacharya, and Markandeya.
Oh. Well, thank you. There you go. Now, for anybody who wants to hear, please mute yourselves, whomever it is that is.
Mr. Chatterjee, if you can kindly keep yourself on mute. Thank you.
Interesting name for muting. There is a. But you got that. I posted earlier, you can see in the chat at 7:49, that's the link to our, it's called Radha Damodara USA. That's our YouTube channel where you actually can hear Amarendra Prabhu speak again. I actually go through, I listen to the lectures that are on that channel, and I learn every time I hear. And then I posted something else, which is a link at 8:03, which is to our morning Bhagavatam class. And we have some illustrious speakers quite often, like tomorrow morning for Bhagavatam class, it will be Krishna Kshetra Maharaj speaking from England. So I put the link there, and it's at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for America, for the devotees who want to do that. As far as yourself, Prabhu, you couldn't have, you're better than Amazon Prime. You deliver faster and intact the message.
Better than Netflix.
Yes. You're the best. And we want you back as many times as you want to honor us with your visit. So having said that, this is customary for us. Please, the devotees, if the host, which is not me at the moment, allows for everybody to unmute themselves, all 100 people, 87 people, and thank you personally, like we do. Thank you so very much. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Jai Krishna.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Ram Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. My obeisances. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you
devotees.
so
Jai
much.
Shri
Srila
Jai Srila
Prabhupada
Prabhupada
ki
Jai.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Amarendra
Sarva-
Prabhu ki jai.
Sarvatma Prabhu. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.